Okay, this is still 5.1, exercises 5.1. And this is exercise number 3. I think the name of this one is use your calculator or something like that. But I want you to use your calculator, but I also want you to solve as well. You should have a pencil and paper out. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph both lines, and then we're going to see where they cross. But if you notice, we don't have y equals mx plus b. So we're going to have to do a little bit of algebra for both of these lines in order to get them into slope-intercept form. Okay, and the way to do that is to take away x on both sides. And then, and this is important, this is a negative y. And if I'm writing this down, you should be writing this down on paper, either in your notes or scrap paper. And that's negative x plus 7. Now, if negative y equals negative x plus 7, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1, because I know a negative times a negative is a positive. And that's going to take this negative away. So negative 1 times negative y equals x minus 7 for my first equation. So y equals x minus 7 is this line. And my second line is a little bit easier, and I'm just going to subtract. And I'm going to write this as a fraction to help you out as well, because that'll help me graph it. Y equals x is 1/2. So I'm going to subtract 1/2 x from both sides of this equation. And then I'm going to rewrite it over here for my second line, and then I'm going to be left with y equals negative 1/2 x plus 5. Okay, so these are my two equations that I'm going to graph. And they're the same equations as these two right here. The only difference is I put them in a slope-intercept form, so that way I would have a much better chance of graphing them correctly early, and well, the only chance. So let's start with x minus 7, and that's going to be negative 7 is my y-intercept, so that's right here. And my slope is 1, so that means I go up 1 over 1. So that's my first line. And then my line number 2 is negative 1/2 x plus 5. So I want to go to my y-intercept of plus 5, which is right here. And negative 0.5x, or negative 1/2 x, that means I rise negative 1 and run 2. So I have a negative slope. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for my solution. The solution is the number that is going to be on, the ordered pair that is going to be on both lines. And that's going to be this point right here. So that is the point 8, 1, positive 8, positive 1. Okay, so for this first problem, the answer is 8, 1. And I got that by graphing both lines and by finding the point where they intersect each other. Now, the hardest part potentially was the actual algebra, and that's when I rearranged each equation into slope-intercept form before I could graph it. So I think you have 5 other questions on here. So for this one's already in slope-intercept form, but for this one you have to add x to both sides to get y equals x plus 17 to graph both of those lines. For the first one, this y equals x plus 3, that's in slope-intercept form. This one is not. You're going to subtract x from both sides to get y equals negative x plus 27. Let's see here. Exercise 4, the cost in dollars. For the care and maintenance of a horse carriage is cost equals 15x plus 2,000, where x is the number of rides. Write an equation for the revenue in terms of number of rides. $35 per ride. So every time you give a ride with this carriage, it costs you $15, but then you also have to pay $2,000 fee. So the R, which stands for revenue, which is money that you're bringing in, is what you're charging. So you're charging $35 per ride. So that's going to be 35. And how many rides are needed to break even? So that is a system of equations because it's asking you, when does C equal the R? When is 15x plus 2,000? And then this is have to be equal to 35x. So at what point are the C and the R equal to each other? So if C equals this and R equals this, then I want to know, when does C equal R? That's when the break-even point. When do they match each other? So in other words, after how many rides would I have to give so that the money that I bring in, which is the revenue, is equal to my cost? So this is a fairly simple two-step equation. You can go ahead and solve that on your own, and the answer you get for x will go right here. And let me see if there's any other questions that you definitely will need help on. Okay, so these ones you're going to be using a graphing calculator. So that's why it does say use a calculator. So the first thing you need to do is solve each one for y. So that way you're in slope-intercept form. So let me do exercise 5, hopefully really quickly. So I'm going to subtract 2.2x from both sides to get y equals negative 2.2x plus 12.5. And then for this one, I'm going to subtract. This is a two-step equation because I have a negative y value. So I'm going to subtract negative 1.4x. So I have negative 4y equals negative 1.4x plus 1. I'm going to divide both sides now by negative 4. And I'm going to have y equals, I'm going to get a calculator out to do that really quick. Sorry about that. So negative 1.4 divided by 4, and that is negative 0.35. Negative 0.35x, and then that's going to be minus 1/4, or when I put it into my calculator, I'm going to put 0.25. Okay, so it says graph using a calculator because these are not nice numbers like some of the other ones. So I'm going to go to y equals, clear out both of my lines, go to the first line, negative 2.2, negative 2.2x plus 12. Oh, I gotta go quickly. 0.5, and I have like 5 seconds left. And then I'm gonna put in this other equation, negative 3.5x. I'm under the gun now, so I'm going fast. 3.5x minus 0.25 graph. And then I'm going to hit, as soon as they're done graphing, Then I'm going to hit second